Hello, wondrous ones. Welcome to the fourth chapter in the six-part video series on eco-spirituality and the New Earth story, because now I'm going to lay out a bit more of a detailed flow about how to live an eco-spiritual life. So get ready for some massive inspiration. So in the last three videos, I've introduced you to how powerful the times are we're living in. We're living in literally living prophecy. So many of the mystics of the ancient world talked about this time of a great shift, great transformation, of a true awakening of humanity itself. And what's interesting is some of them actually talked about Mother Earth going through an awakening process herself. And I've shared with you how we are all being called to create this new Earth mythology, a new guiding story that can unite us all like never before, and about how we can use simple spiritual practices to connect to Mother Earth intimately, so we can all individually feel what it's like to be in touch with the living goddess that is Mother Earth. Because truly, one of the most important teachings that's come through from the ancients is that Mother Earth is the true teacher of wisdom. And if we can all start getting in touch with her intelligence, her sacred ecology, and start following her natural laws, we can really start to restore a lot of the sacred balance into human civilization and reintegrate ourselves in the sacred web of Earth, healing this most ancient wound of separation from the Earth goddess herself. So if you haven't watched those videos, I highly recommend going back. There's a lot of really interesting stuff there, and it'll really set you up for where I'm about to take you now. So these are some of the complete steps that I feel have really worked for me and are really integral to live an eco-spiritual life, a life where you are really being a part of co-creating the new Earth. So foremost, the most important thing is we need to center Mother Earth in our lives. We need to regard her as just as important as a divine being as even we might regard God or Source. We need to really restore her to being the true teacher of wisdom to us as well. And what this is important for is not only does it allow the environmental crisis to become this really big sacred purpose in our life, but allows us to ground our spirituality in really embodied experiences, to really guard against what some ancient philosophers called the sickness of infinity, becoming too obsessed with kind of the path of ascension. And we really need to also be part of the descension. You know, we need to have heaven and earth working in our spirituality so that we're not ungrounded, which is a huge problem in modern day spiritual practices. Secondly, we need to have a daily prayer and a way to connect to Mother Earth, so that each and every day, that centering of her in our lives is an embodied practice, and we're also accessing her, becoming Gnostic. What Gnostic means is we're becoming self-knowing. We don't necessarily need a priestess or a guru. We ourselves can be an emissary, to be receiving divine instructions from the universe, but especially in this context, Mother Earth. So in the last video, we had this very simple practice where you can really make this a day-to-day offering in your own life. And the third thing we need to realize is that the Earth is actually multidimensional. It is also the path of ascension and descension. When you really start to connect with the re-enchantment of the world, which is this idea that there are all these other mystical realms to the Earth, all these different dimensions to reality, you start to realize that spirituality is about being kind of a Renaissance person. We have to look at many different practices, many different ways to embody, to heal, especially when we get into our ancient traumas from our ancestral lines. There's so much that we need to emphasize, and multidimensionality is really one of the big vogue things that's being talked about in science as well. We're realizing we live in a multidimensional universe, so we have to look into many different practices, from sacred sexuality to sound healing, ecstatic dance, meditation, even shamanic work with plant medicines. All of these things have their place in this new Earth story, because we're realizing that when we connect to the Earth, it's actually a very spiritual dimension. She's actually a living goddess, and she has many different layers of her being, which we're so blessed to explore. And the last step is we have to have a daily practice of gratitude to Mother Earth. Now, this is something that a lot of indigenous peoples figured out, that to really live in connection with the Earth, we need to honor this reciprocity, this law of interdependence, that we're all alive because of the cooperation of all the plants, the air, the waters. All these sacred aspects of our being are all working together to make life possible. And so when we start to have an everyday practice of gratitude, we start to acknowledge this, and we start to really embolden being a part of this continuum. We start to really re-web ourselves with the sacred web of life. So if you follow those four steps, you can really start to embolden and solidify a really powerful eco-spiritual practice in your life, which in my mind is one of the leading edges of paradigm shifts right now for all of humanity. We need to get back in touch with the earth, and we need to do it in a spiritual and a sacred way so that it can really be an all levels kind of thing and really engage us in all the multi-dimensions of our being. In my upcoming The Honor All Creation journey, we'll be covering so much of this multi-dimensional terrain. There's really going to be building on each and every chapter. I'll be sharing wisdom teachings, inspirations, practices for you to really foster more depth in your earth connections. And we'll also be diving really deep into the ancient mythologies of the story of Sophia and really grounding you in the ancient wisdoms. And it's also a really powerful experience because this journey also coincides with my double album, Honor All Creation. 22 songs that are really like song prayers, sonic activations with sound healing, and they'll be bridled to you as you go through this experience. We'll do deep listening exercises so you can really have the healing power of sound, vibration, and sacred music with you as well. So in the next video, I'm going to be sharing some personal stories about how eco-spirituality really changed my life in extraordinary ways. I think you'll find really inspiring, and it's going to really motivate you to do this work and see how important it is for all humanity to really get in touch with Earth in a very visceral and spiritual way. This is really the supreme medicine for us all. I can't emphasize enough how big and important this wound is of our separation from nature and how amazing it is to restore the sense of the living goddess that is Earth in our life. So thank you for watching this video, and stay attuned and look out for the next chapter in the 6-part video series, Be Glorious.